What if I told you that the most famous farm in America isn't about pumpkins at all? That the real harvest was secrets? That the smiling faces, the family feuds, the reality TV drama, all of it was just the cover story for something darker, something buried in the soil of that 100-acre property? For decades, we watched. We laughed. We took sides. But we never saw the truth. Until today. Because today, the gates of Roloff Farms swung open not for tourists, but for police cruisers. And the person taken away in handcuffs wasn't a disgruntled ex-employee or a bitter son. It was the woman who was supposed to be the future of the farm. Caryn Chandler. Her arrest this morning isn't the end of the story. It's the key that unlocked a vault Matt Roloff thought he'd sealed forever. A $5 million secret. And it changes everything you think you know about little people, big world. Let's rewind. The public story is a modern American fairy tale, right? Matt and Amy Roloff, their family, their struggles, their triumphs. A little farm in Hillsboro, Oregon becomes a pumpkin patch empire, a TV sensation. We saw the marriages, the divorces, the arguments over dirt and dollars. We saw Matt, the visionary, always scheming, always building. And after his divorce from Amy, we saw Caryn Chandler, the farm manager, step out of the shadows and into his life. The calm, professional presence. The steady hand. The new love. It seemed like a sensible second act. But behind the sensible was the secret. The fracture with the twins, Zach and Jeremy, was the first crack in the carefully curated facade. The bitter, public breakdown over the purchase of the farm. Matt offered $4 million for 16 acres. The family said no. The dream of a multi-generational legacy collapsed. We were told it was about money, about control, about different visions. But what if that entire, painful negotiation was a stage play? A diversion? Because while the world was focused on the family civil war, while cameras captured the tears and the frustration, something else was happening. Quietly. Methodically. Matt Roloff wasn't just selling pumpkins and TV storylines. He was executing a financial maneuver so precise, so layered, that it would make a Wall Street banker blush. He was building a second empire, right under the noses of his family, the producers, and us, the audience. This is the $5 million secret. It wasn't in the farm's bank account. It wasn't tied to the TV show's royalties. It was in the land itself, but not the part everyone fought over. While the family drama centered on the big house and the iconic pumpkin patch, Matt was acquiring parcels. Adjacent land. Forgotten plots. He was creating a new, private portfolio. Through a series of shell companies with bland, forgettable names: Willamette Valley Land Trust LLC, Heritage Holdings Oregon Incorporated. He began funneling money. Where did that money come from? From little people, big world. From the farm's profits. From loans secured against the very property his children thought might one day be theirs. The paper trail is a maze. But at the center of that maze is Caryn Chandler. Her role wasn't just farm manager and girlfriend. According to documents now being unsealed, she was a signatory. She was the authorized agent for 3 of these shell companies. Her signature is on the deeds, the transfers, the bank documents. For years, she presented herself as the loyal partner, supporting Matt's dreams. But in the eyes of the law, she was much more. She was an active participant in a complex asset-shielding operation. And the $5 million? That's the estimated current value of this shadow portfolio of land and assets. Assets completely separate from Roloff Farms, the business. Assets never mentioned during the family sale negotiations. Assets that, effectively, made Matt's offer to his kids for the main farm a fraction of his true net worth. He was offering them a piece of the stage, while he owned the entire theater next door. So why an arrest? Why now? This is where the story twists from financial secrecy to potential crime. The investigation, led by the Oregon Department of Justice and the Washington County Financial Crimes Unit, isn't about the secret itself. It's about how it was funded. The subpoenas point to wire fraud, tax evasion, and deceptive business practices. The theory prosecutors are working on is shocking. They believe Matt Roloff, with Caryn Chandler as the operational chief, used the publicly traded Roloff Farms brand, the brand built on family, as a piggy bank to finance his private land grabs. Overinflating business expenses, diverting revenue from events and partnerships, even allegedly using fan donations for farm preservation to service loans on his private parcels. Caryn wasn't arrested for being Matt's girlfriend. She was arrested because the digital trail is a confession. Emails show her directing contractors to bill the farm's business account for work done on Matt's private land. Invoices for fencing, irrigation, even landscaping for a secluded, never-before-seen cabin on one of the hidden parcels, all paid for by the farm LLC. Text messages with a, now cooperating, bank official discussing how to characterize loans. She was the gears in the machine, and the gears have now ground to a halt. Imagine being Zach or Jeremy Roloff today. Watching the news. The woman you once trusted as a family friend, taken away in cuffs. And the revelation that your father's empire was double-layered. The pain of the farm sale wasn't just rejection. It was, allegedly, a manipulation. They were bargaining for a legacy that had already been quietly hollowed out. And what of Amy? The ex-wife who fought for her fair share? Did she know? Sources close to her suggest a simmering suspicion for years, a sense that the farm's books never felt right, but without proof, it was just another Roloff argument. Now, it's evidence. Matt Roloff has not been arrested. Yet. His lawyers have issued a statement calling Caryn a scapegoat and the allegations a gross distortion of standard estate planning. They say the separate assets were always intended to be part of the children's inheritance, a safety net he was building. But prosecutors argue you don't build a safety net in secret, using funds from a family business. You don't need shell companies for transparency. Caryn Chandler sits in a county jail, facing charges that could bring a decade in prison. Her silence is deafening. But the DA has hinted a deal is on the table. If she flips, if she tells the full story of the $5 million secret, Matt Roloff could face not just financial ruin, but prison time. The farm is closed today. The "sorry, we're closed" sign swings in the Oregon rain. The pumpkin patches are empty. The cameras are gone. The legacy isn't just tarnished, it's being forensically audited. For over 2 decades, we tuned in to see a family. We saw little people facing a big world. But the biggest world, it turns out, was the one of secrets Matt Roloff built behind the scenes. A world of hidden deeds and clandestine deals. A world where the most successful crop he ever grew was deception. And with Caryn Chandler's arrest, the harvest of that bitter crop has finally begun. What do you think? Was Caryn a willing architect or a manipulated pawn? Will Matt Roloff be next to be booked? And can anything from Roloff Farms ever be the same again? Sound off in the comments below. And hit subscribe, because as this case unfolds, I promise you, we will be digging even deeper. This is Your Name, asking you to look beyond the story you're told. Until next time. Okay. Stop everything. Rewind the tape. We need to talk about the narrative. The story we've been sold for over a decade on Little People, Big World. The perfect fairy tale. Tori and Zach. The high school sweetheart, the teacher who married her dwarfism-affected student, the picture-perfect family with Jackson, Lila, and Josiah. The normal ones, amidst the Roloff farm chaos. It was the bedrock of the show. The love story we rooted for. But what if it wasn't what it seemed? What if, hidden in plain sight, there were cracks so deep they shattered the entire foundation? And what if the most shocking twist isn't just the divorce, but what and who came after? Because the internet is on fire. The headlines are brutal. Cheater Tori? Tori's revealed new husband. The comment sections are war zones. Team Zach versus Team Tori. And in the middle of it all, a family trying to navigate a private heartbreak in the most public way imaginable. So let's pull up a chair, grab a coffee, and dive deep. We're not here for gossip, we're here for context. We're here to connect the dots from the first sweet season to the stunning Instagram announcement, to the new man in the picture. This is a story about reality TV, about marriage under a microscope, about diverging paths, and about the terrifying, brave act of starting over. Let's set the scene. Zach Roloff, the beloved, soft-spoken son of Matt and Amy. Born with achondroplasia, the same form of dwarfism as his father. He grew up on camera, his insecurities, his dreams, and his search for love all documented. Enter Tori Rietimu, the vibrant, outgoing soccer player and college student. They meet when Tori's friend is working on a school project about dwarfism and interviews Zach. The connection is instant, electric. For the audience, it was revolutionary. Here was a little person not as a subject of curiosity, but as the romantic lead. Tori, a average height person, truly saw him not for his stature, but for his heart. Their courtship was classic, sweet reality TV gold. The awkward dates, the family integrations, the supportive girlfriend cheering Zach on through his surgeries. When they married in 2015, it felt like a victory not just for them, but for everyone watching. Here was proof that love conquers all. They built their life. Tori became a kindergarten teacher. They had 3 beautiful children, 2 of whom inherited achondroplasia. They were the stable center. The anti-drama. While Matt and Amy divorced, while Zach's twin brother Jeremy and his wife Audrey dove into their cult-like, as some critics said, brand of perfect marriage, Zach and Tori seemed relatable. Real. But fissures, when you look back, were visible. The first major public strain? The farm deal. This wasn't just a family argument, it was a seismic event that revealed core differences in values and vision. 4 years, the narrative was that Zach would take over Roloff farms. It was his birthright, his passion. He worked the land, understood its rhythms. But the deal with his father, Matt, fell apart in a spectacular, painful way. Matt, the businessman, wanted a strict financial transaction. Zach, the son, wanted a family legacy passed down. The negotiations were brutal, played out on TV. Zach felt betrayed, belittled. And Tori? She was furious. She saw the emotional toll on her husband. She became his fiercest defender, but also, perhaps, a mirror for his deepest disappointments. This is crucial. The farm wasn't just land, it was Zach's identity. Losing it meant losing a part of himself. Meanwhile, Tori's identity was evolving. From teacher to full-time mom to influencer. Her world was the kids, the home, creating a stable bubble away from the Roloff chaos. Zach's world was shrinking, defined by a loss. Tori's was expanding, defined by motherhood and a growing online presence. They began to physically and emotionally pull away from the epicenter of the family drama, moving to battleground, Washington. A fresh start, but also a retreat. Then, the health struggles. Zach's ongoing medical issues related to his dwarfism, the surgeries, the pain, the recovery. The immense pressure on Tori as a caregiver, a mother, and the emotional anchor. The constant, unrelenting presence of cameras, even in pain. The pressure to be on, to perform their happiness. Imagine arguing about bills, about parenting, about loneliness, and then having to smile for a confessional interview. The weight of that is unimaginable. The official announcement in October 2023 was a shockwave. After 25 years of life together, and 8 years of marriage, we have made the difficult decision to separate. They cited a long period of pain, work, and professional help, but ultimately, we have exhausted all our resources to make this work. But the internet doesn't do peaceful separations. Almost immediately, the whispers began. The most poisonous of them all, Tori cheated. Where did this come from? Let's trace the rumor mill. 1. The timeline. Fans are forensic experts. They noticed a seeming distance in social media posts months before the announcement. Fewer couple photos, more solo Tori content. In the world of reality TV fandom, absence of proof is proof of a problem. 2. The new man sightings. Shortly after the separation was announced, Tori was spotted at her son's soccer game. Sitting next to her was a man. A tall, average height, athletic-looking man. The paparazzi photos flew. This, to the rumor engine, was proof. They labeled him Tori's new boyfriend immediately. The narrative wrote itself. Tori left Zach for another man. She must have been seeing him before the split. Hence, cheater Tori. 3. The narrative bias. There's an ugly trope in our society. When a seemingly strong or vibrant woman leaves a quieter, perhaps more vulnerable man, she must have done something wrong. She must have betrayed him. Zach, with his relatable insecurities and physical challenges, easily garnered a wave of protective sympathy. Tori, the outgoing, sometimes blunt former teacher, was framed as the villain who abandoned her struggling husband. But here's what's critically important: there has been zero evidence of infidelity. Not a shred. Zach has never implied it. Tori has never addressed it. Why would she dignify it? The man at the soccer game was, by all accounts from those actually in the know, simply a friend. He was later identified in a completely innocent context. The cheating narrative is a classic, misogynistic internet fabrication, built on Photoshop, speculation, and the desperate need to assign blame in a complex situation. The real story of the crumble is far more mundane, and far more tragic. It's the story of two people who grew into different versions of themselves. Zach, grappling with the loss of his dream, the farm, and chronic health issues, may have retreated. Tori, shouldering the immense load of childcare, household management, and being the family's primary emotional and financial engine, through her influencer career, may have burned out. The romance, eroded by stress, responsibility, and unmet needs, likely faded. They became co-parents and co-stars, not partners. That's not scandalous, it's heartbreakingly human. Now, to the hook in our title, Tori revealed new husband. This is where headlines distort reality. Tori did not reveal a husband. She has begun, cautiously, to share glimpses of a new relationship. Months after the separation, she posted a series of Instagram stories. There was a man's hand holding a coffee cup. There were hints of a presence, hiking boots by the door, a shadow in a family photo. The army went to work. They connected the dots to the man from the soccer game, whose social media, private, but stumbled upon, showed him to be a divorced father himself, a fitness professional, seemingly stable and low-key. This wasn't a grand reveal. It was a tentative step toward normalcy. But in the LPBW universe, it was an earthquake. For many, it felt too soon. But time in the public eye is distorted. Their marriage may have been emotionally over for years before the legal announcement. Tori has the right to move on. And what of Zach? His journey has been quieter. He's focused on the kids, on his own healing. He's been open about the difficulty of the split, about co-parenting, about finding his new normal. There appears to be no public animosity between them regarding new partners. They have both, in statements, asked for privacy and kindness. So, who is this new husband? He's not a husband. He's a boyfriend. And from the slivers we can see, he represents a different world for Tori. He's from outside the reality TV circus. He's not linked to a famous farm or a family saga. He represents a life that is, perhaps, simpler, more private. A life where Tori isn't Zach Roloff's wife or Amy's daughter-in-law, but just Tori. For a woman who entered this world as a bright-eyed college student and spent her entire adult life defined by the Roloff name, that freedom must be terrifying and exhilarating. Here's the ultimate twist, the hook we promised. The villain in this story isn't Tori. It isn't Zach. It's not a secret lover or a greedy parent. The narrative of the perfect reality TV couple. The narrative that their love was a fairy tale meant to inspire us, and therefore had to last forever. The narrative that we, the audience, owned a piece of their happiness and are entitled to an explanation when it fails. The narrative that demands a villain when a love story ends. Little people, big world is a business. Their love was a product. When the product changes, the consumers, the fans, revolt. The cheater-Tori narrative is a simplistic, salacious way to explain the failure of the product. It's easier to digest than the complex, slow-motion tragedy of two good people falling out of love under immense, unique pressures. The real story is about the incredible difficulty of maintaining a marriage in the most unnatural of circumstances. It's about the pressure on a woman to be a perfect wife, mother, caregiver, and TV personality. It's about the pressure on a man to live up to a legacy that was suddenly ripped away, while navigating a world not built for his body. It's about growing apart, not because someone is evil, but because life is relentless and change is inevitable. Their new chapters are the true test. Can Zach build an identity beyond the son who didn't get the farm and Tori's ex-husband? Can Tori build a life of privacy and new love while co-parenting with her famous ex and raising children in the public eye? And can they do it with the grace and mutual respect they've so far shown? So, the next time you see a headline screaming "Cheater Tori" or "Tori's new mystery man revealed," remember the complexity. Remember the years of footage, the unspoken stresses, the humanity behind the hashtag. This isn't a scandal. It's a divorce. One of the most painful, common human experiences, just happening on an uncommon stage. The fairy tale is over. But maybe, just maybe, something more real is beginning for both of them. A story not written by producers, but by themselves. And that, despite the pain, might be the most hopeful twist of all. What do you think? Is the public narrative unfair? Can reality TV couples ever have a normal breakup? Let's have a respectful discussion down in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the secrets behind your favorite reality shows, smash that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next video. The real reason Zach and Tori left Roloff Farms, a legacy fractured, not sold. The image was iconic, a cornerstone of American reality television for over 2 decades, the sprawling, verdant expanse of Roloff Farms, with its signature red barn and the towering, quirky presence of Little People, Big World. At the heart of this narrative was the expectation of continuity, the belief that one of the 4 Roloff children would eventually take the reins, preserving the family's legacy for a new generation of fans and visitors. 4 years, the torch seemed destined for Zach, the affable, sports-loving son who appeared most connected to the land's pastoral identity. And then, in the spring of 2023, it happened. The dream shattered. Zach and Tori, with their 3 young children, Jackson, Lila, and Josiah, announced they had purchased a new home in Battle Ground, Washington, leaving the farm behind. The official story, as often happens in the polished world of reality TV, was one of practical necessity and a desire for a fresh start. But to accept that at face value is to ignore the deep, painful, and intricately woven tapestry of family dynamics, business, and unhealed wounds that truly propelled their exodus. The real reason Zach and Tori left Roloff Farms is not a single event but a perfect storm of conflicting visions, a father's unyielding grip, a mother's retreat, and the profound emotional toll of a lifetime spent negotiating for a place they already called home. It is a story of a legacy fractured, not sold. To understand the rupture, one must first understand the foundation. From the earliest seasons of Little People, Big World, Zach Roloff was portrayed as the son with the deepest affinity for the farm. While his twin brother, Jeremy, showed more interest in photography and mechanics, and his older brother, Matt, was often at odds with their father, Zach was the one riding the tractor, helping with the pumpkin season, and expressing a seemingly genuine desire to one day run the property. This was not just a narrative constructed by TLC. In numerous interviews and episodes, Zach spoke of the farm as his sanctuary. As a little person in a world not built for him, the farm was a place of freedom and capability. It was where he felt most like himself. This emotional connection created an unspoken, and often spoken, promise. Viewers, and more importantly, Zach himself, began to see him as the heir apparent. His marriage to Tori in 2015 only solidified this trajectory. Tori, a former teacher, embraced the farm life, participating in pumpkin season and integrating seamlessly into the Roloff brand. With the birth of their son Jackson, who also has dwarfism, the poetic resonance was undeniable. Here was a new generation of Roloffs, ready to inherit and continue the story, providing a powerful visual for the show's future. The farm was not just a business, it was their children's inheritance, a birthright that seemed preordained. If Zach's connection to the farm was emotional and ancestral, his father Matt's was architectural and ego-driven. Matt Roloff is a visionary, an inventor, and a master builder. The farm is not merely a piece of land to him, it is a physical manifestation of his imagination, his perseverance, and his identity. Every quirky structure, the pirate ship, the western town, the castle, is a monument to his ability to overcome the limitations imposed by his dwarfism and create a world entirely of his own design. This is the core of the conflict. Matt could never truly relinquish control because to do so would be to surrender his life's work, his masterpiece. He didn't just want a successor, he wanted a steward who would execute his vision, not their own. This created an impossible dynamic for any child, but particularly for Zach, who sought autonomy. Throughout the show's run, we witnessed countless business meetings between Matt and his sons, primarily Zach and Jeremy. These were rarely collaborative discussions between equals. They were presentations where the sons pitched ideas, and Matt, from his position of ultimate authority, would shoot them down, delay them, or co-opt them. He was the CEO, and they were, at best, middle managers with limited power. This pattern bred a deep-seated resentment. Zach didn't want to be an employee on his family's farm. He wanted to be a partner, and eventually, the owner. But Matt's identity was so fused with the property that any step toward genuine partnership felt, to him, like a step toward obsolescence. The schism in the Roloff family is often dated to Zach and Tori's departure, but the true fault line appeared years earlier with the separation and eventual divorce of Matt and Amy. This event didn't just split a marriage, it physically and legally divided the farm. In 2016, after a protracted and often televised negotiation, Amy sold her 50% stake in the 34-acre property to Matt for a reported $667,000. This was a pivotal moment. It consolidated power entirely in Matt's hands. No longer did he have to negotiate with a co-owner and ex-wife, whose priorities, a functional family home over grandiose projects, often clashed with his own. For the children, especially Zach, this sale fundamentally altered the equation. The farm was no longer the shared, albeit contentious, family estate. It was now solely Matt's farm. The emotional connection to the homestead, which included Amy's house, was severed from the legal reality. The prospect of taking over the farm now meant not inheriting a family legacy, but purchasing a business asset from their father. This transitioned the relationship from a familial succession plan to a cold, hard financial transaction. The climax of this years-long drama came in 2021, when Matt decided to formally sell the farm. He initially listed the entire 34-acre property for $4 million, a price tag that seemed aimed at outside investors. When that proved challenging, he offered a portion of the land, 16 acres, including the main family house where Amy had lived, to Zach and Tori. This should have been the happy ending. The heir was being given the chance to buy his birthright. But the devil, as always, was in the details. Imagine a little farmhouse, situated at the heart of a gigantic reality TV empire. For over a decade, we have witnessed love, divorce, family conflicts, reunions, and unforgettable Halloween parties there. We believed in a story, a special story. The story of a couple who defied all odds, broke all expectations, and finally found their happily ever after. We accepted it as a modern fairy tale. But today the final page of that fairy tale has been written, and it does not end with they all lived happily ever after. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, your name, and you're listening to Podcast Show Name. Today we are not just discussing a celebrity breakup. We are analyzing a symbolic event. We are witnessing the final chapter of the cultural phenomenon known as Little People, Big World. Today, Amy Roloff and Chris Marek have officially announced their divorce. And this news, while not unexpected for many, still creates a deep resonance, because it forces us to reflect not just on one couple's relationship, but on the nature of reality TV, public life, second chances, and the stories we so desperately want to believe in. Let's rewind for a moment. To truly understand the weight of this official announcement, we have to go back to the very beginning. Not of Amy and Chris, but of Amy and Matt 2006. Little People, Big World premiered on TLC. It wasn't just a show about dwarfism, it was a show about a family. The hard-working, often stubborn Matt. The nurturing, family-anchored Amy. Their 4 children, twins Jeremy and Zach, Molly, and Jacob. We were invited into their Roloff farms, their struggles, their joys. We saw a marriage, a long-term marriage, showing its cracks. The tension was not sensationalized. It felt real, mundane, almost uncomfortably familiar. The bickering about projects, the differing life priorities, the gradual emotional drift. After 27 years of marriage, Amy and Matt announced their separation in 2015, and their divorce was finalized in 2016. The audience was heartbroken but understood. The narrative then split. Matt moved on with Caryn Chandler, the farm's former manager. And Amy. Amy began a journey of self-discovery. She lost weight, she wrote a book, she embraced a new independence. And then, into her life walked Chris Marek. Chris was different. He wasn't from the reality TV world. He was a former firefighter, a contractor, a seemingly steady, calm presence. He was tall, a stark visual contrast that became a metaphor for the new, different life Amy was building. Their courtship played out on our screens. It was sweet, hopeful. He supported her, he got along with her kids, mostly, and he seemed to genuinely adore her. In 2019, on a picturesque Oregon beach, Chris proposed. The audience cheered. This was the redemption arc. This was Amy's hard-earned happiness after years of a difficult marriage. Their wedding in August 2021 was a major television event. It was marketed as the culmination of Amy's journey. After all the chaos, here was her peace. Chris, at the altar, even joked, "I'm marrying a Roloff." It felt like a full-circle moment. The show now had its central, stable, loving couple. Amy had moved off the farm, into a new home with her new husband. The chapter with Matt was closed. This was the bright, shiny new beginning. But almost immediately, whispers began. Subtle hints that all was not the fairy tale we were sold. They maintained separate bank accounts, which many modern couples do, but on screen, it was often framed as a point of tension or extreme caution. They had different social energies. Amy loved being the hostess, the center of a family gathering, while Chris often seemed more reserved, content to be on the sidelines. There were whispers about his involvement, or lack thereof, with her family, particularly during high-stress times like the intense family conflict surrounding the future of Roloff Farms. The most telling clue, for any reality TV detective, was the cameras themselves. While Matt and Caryn's relationship became more central to the show, Amy and Chris's segments began to feel staged. Less about their genuine daily life and more about creating content, a trip here, a cooking segment there. The authentic, sometimes uncomfortable intimacy that characterized the early seasons of Amy and Matt's marriage, and even Amy's early days with Chris, seemed to fade. They were playing happy married couple for the narrative, but the eyes sometimes told a different story. Then, in 2023, the rumors exploded. Amy and Chris were living separately. They were working on their marriage. The official statements were crafted with careful, PR-friendly language. "We have decided to take some time apart to evaluate our relationship." The audience knew what that usually meant. The fairy tale was cracking. And yet, a sliver of hope remained. Maybe they'd work it out. Maybe this was just a rough patch for the second-chance sweethearts. Today, that hope is extinguished. The official divorce announcement is the period at the end of the sentence. So, what happened? Beyond the rumors and the edited TV footage, what are the forces that likely led to this? First, the specter of the first marriage. Amy was married for 27 years. That shapes a person. It creates patterns, traumas, expectations, and defenses. Entering a new marriage in your 50s, especially after such a public and emotionally charged divorce, means you're carrying baggage. You may be fiercely protective of your hard-won independence, your finances, your space, your identity. Chris, never having been married before, may have had an idealized version of married life that clashed with the complex, guarded reality of being married to Amy Roloff, a reality TV veteran and matriarch with a massive, intertwined family legacy. Second, the reality TV paradox. Their relationship was born on screen and nurtured for the cameras. But what is the cost? Every disagreement, every moment of tension, isn't just a private moment to be worked through. It's potential storylines, producer questions, and audience scrutiny. How much of their connection was genuine bonding? And how much was the accelerated intimacy that comes from building a relationship while simultaneously performing it? When the honeymoon phase TV storyline ended, they were left with the actual unscripted work of a marriage. Work that happens off camera, in the quiet, mundane moments that aren't televised. Third, the identity dilemma. Who was Chris Marek outside of Amy Roloff's husband? For years, his primary identity for the public was just that. He had his own career, yes, but in the universe of the show, he was a supporting character in her narrative. For a proud, capable man, that can become grating. Conversely, Amy's identity is profoundly tied to being a Roloff, a mother, a grandmother, a businesswoman tied to the Roloff brand. Could Chris ever fully integrate into that world, a world still heavily defined by her ex-husband Matt and the gravitational pull of the farm? Fourth, the simple, televisable truths. Sometimes, people just grow apart. Interests diverge. The way one person wants to spend their retirement, travel, quiet, isn't what the other wants, family events, being a public figure. The little habits that were cute during dating become irritations after years. These are the normal, human reasons marriages end, magnified 1,000 times by the pressure cooker of fame. So, where does this leave the show? Little People, Big World is now at a fascinating, perhaps precarious, crossroads. Its original central marriage is long gone. Its second-chance romance, which became its emotional core, has now dissolved. The narrative now rests almost entirely on Matt and Caryn, who are not married but seem solid, and the adult children. Zach and Tori's evolving family life away from the farm, Jeremy and Audrey's distinct brand outside the main show, and Molly and Jacob's more private lives. Can the show survive the loss of its two primary love stories? Or will it transform into a show about the business of the farm and the scattered lives of the adult children? More importantly, where does this leave Amy? This, perhaps, is the most poignant part of the story. Amy's public arc has been one of seeking happiness through partnership. First with Matt, then with Chris. Both have now ended in divorce. The message, unintentionally, seems brutal. But maybe the real, unwritten chapter for Amy is about finding completeness outside of a romantic partnership. She has her children, her grandchildren, her faith, her businesses, her charity work. Perhaps her true happily ever after isn't about a prince, but about sovereignty. About being Amy Roloff. Full stop. And what about us, the audience? We invested in this story. We cried at their weddings, we felt anger at their conflicts, we hoped for their happiness. This divorce feels like a personal betrayal because we were sold a narrative of resilience and romantic triumph. It forces us to confront our own complicity. We wanted the fairy tale so badly that we ignored the subtle cues, the staged scenes, the press release language. We must ask ourselves, do we consume these reality stories for genuine human connection, or for neatly packaged arcs of drama and resolution? The announcement today isn't just a tabloid headline. It's the end of an era for a show that defined a certain genre of family reality TV. It's a case study in how public narratives are constructed and how they can crumble under the weight of private reality. For Amy and Chris, we can only wish them genuine peace and privacy as they navigate this dissolution away from the cameras. Their story serves as a powerful reminder. The most compelling stories are often the messiest, the most unresolved. And sometimes, the true twist isn't a surprise wedding or a shocking affair. It's the quiet, dignified, and profoundly sad decision to close a book that everyone else was still hoping to read. This has been a deep dive into the end of a modern fairy tale. I'm Your Name, and you've been listening to Podcast Show Name. What are your thoughts on this chapter closing? How do you think Little People, Big World moves forward? Share your reflections with us. Until next time, remember, the biggest world is often the one behind the screen. Okay, let's get real for a minute. Let's talk about a story that feels like a fairy tale. The kind we all sort of whisper about, deep down, hoping maybe life works that way. It's the story of a couple who grew up, literally, in front of our eyes. From the starry-eyed newlyweds, to the nervous first-time parents, to the warriors battling the grueling, silent wars of fertility and loss. Their journey was a masterclass in raw, unfiltered reality TV, but also a testament to a quieter, more profound kind of faith and grit. And then, just when you think the story has settled into a beautiful, complete rhythm, life, in its most spectacular, chaotic, double-the-love fashion, decides to write a twist so perfect, it feels scripted. Except it wasn't. This is the story of Tori and Zach Roloff, but not just any chapter. This is the story of the chapter that came with 2 first sentences, 2 heartbeats, 2 cries in the delivery room. The chapter that began not with a question, but with a gasp. Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, and today, we're diving deep into one of the most joyously overwhelming moments in the Roloff family saga, the birth of Tori and Zach's twin babies. This isn't just a birth announcement, it's the culmination of a multi-season epic of love, resilience, and a whole lot of unexpected plot twists. So, get comfortable. We're going back to the beginning to understand just how monumental this arrival was. This is part 1, the build-up to the double miracle. To truly, fully appreciate the seismic joy of November 2023, we have to rewind the tape. Way back. We have to meet Zach and Tori not as parents of 3, but as 2 people whose love story became public property almost from the start. Think about it. Zach Roloff was a cornerstone of Little People, Big World, a show that did something revolutionary. It normalized dwarfism for an entire generation. We watched him grow from a mischievous kid into a thoughtful, sometimes reserved young man. And then, in walks Tori, a bright, cheerful, average-sized elementary school teacher who saw Zach, not his achondroplasia. Their courtship was sweet, relatable. The proposal was romantic. Their 2015 wedding was a televised event that felt like a community celebration. They were the show's golden couple, the promise of a happy ever after. And for a while, that's exactly what they delivered. Their first son, Jackson Kyle, arrived in May 2017. His birth was featured on the show, and it was a landmark moment, not just for them, but for the audience. We saw the worries, the genetic possibilities, a 50% chance Jackson would have achondroplasia, the sheer vulnerability of becoming parents. When it was confirmed Jackson had dwarfism, we saw Zach and Tori process it not with grief, but with a powerful, determined love. They were ready. Jackson was perfect. 2 years later, their daughter, Lila Ray, joined the crew in November 2019. Another beautiful, healthy baby girl. Their family felt complete. The picture was picturesque, the handsome dad, the radiant mom, 2 adorable kids, a beautiful home on Roloff Farms. On social media, Tori was the quintessential mommy blogger, sharing messy, real moments, her passion for teaching, her devotion to her family. They had navigated the challenges of Zach's health scares, the farm family dynamics, and public life with what seemed like graceful ease. But here's where our fairytale hits its first very real, very dark forest. Because behind those curated squares and smiling episode recaps, a storm was brewing. A silent, painful, and heartbreakingly common storm. Secondary infertility and pregnancy loss. In early 2021, Tori shared devastating news. She had suffered a miscarriage. The family they had hoped to expand was put on hold, shrouded in grief. The public persona cracked, and we saw the raw pain. Tori spoke openly about the loneliness of loss, the frustration of your body not cooperating. Zach shared his struggle to support her while processing his own sadness. This wasn't a TV plotline. This was their life. The happy ever after narrative was abruptly rewritten into a story of endurance. They bravely tried again. And in the summer of 2021, joy, cautious, guarded joy, returned. Tori was pregnant. The announcement was met with an outpouring of love from fans who had grieved with them. But during a routine anatomy scan, the unthinkable happened. There was no heartbeat. They had lost another baby. This second miscarriage was a crushing blow, a trauma that Tori would later describe as something that changed her fundamentally. Let's sit with that for a second. Imagine the whiplash. From the public perception of a perfect family life to the private agony of 2 profound losses. Tori's openness during this time was a lifeline for thousands of women but also a heavy burden for her to carry. She talked about the guilt, the anger at her body, the fear that maybe their family was complete as a foursome, not by choice, but by cruel biological circumstance. Zach, in his steady way, was her rock, but he too was adrift. The man who fixed things, the former soccer coach used to strategizing, was powerless. All he could do was hold her, parent Jackson and Lila, and wait. The couple retreated from the public eye a bit. The show went on, but a shadow had fallen over their storyline. The quest for a third child became a central, aching theme. Then, in early 2022, a third positive pregnancy test. The anxiety must have been paralyzing. Every cramp, every quiet moment, a potential harbinger of disaster. But week by week, milestone by milestone, this little one held on. The relief when they passed the first trimester, then the anatomy scan, was palpable even through a screen. In June 2022, Tori gave birth to their third child, a son, Josiah Luke Roloff. Sire. His safe arrival felt like a miracle, a hard-won victory against the ghosts of loss. The family of 5 was bursting with gratitude. You'd think, right? That's the happy ending. The rainbow after the storm. The completed family portrait. And for a beautiful, busy year, that's exactly what it seemed to be. Tori and Zach settled into the chaotic, lovely rhythm of life with 3 kids under 6. They moved into a new home, further establishing their own family unit away from the farm drama. Josiah grew, Lila's personality sparkled. Jackson became a brilliant, curious big brother. The chapter on pregnancy and infant loss, while never forgotten, seemed to have a final, joyful footnote named Josiah. But life, especially life in the Roloff universe, has a funny way of subverting expectations. In mid-2023, whispers started. Tori's social media posts became a little more strategic. A well-placed emoji. A cryptic comment about being so tired in a way that wasn't just toddler exhaustion. Fans, who had become deeply invested in their fertility journey, began to speculate. Was she? Could she be? The couple played it cool. They'd been here before, the public speculation, the pressure. They wanted, needed, to guard their hearts. After their history, who could blame them? Then, on a seemingly ordinary day in July 2023, they released a video. The thumbnail was simple, a photo of them, Tori with a slight, knowing smile. The title, Baby Number 4? The video was classic, nervous, excited Roloff. They sat together, Josiah toddling around. They confirmed the news. Tori was pregnant. The joy was there, but it was tempered, mature. It was the joy of survivors, not the unbridled excitement of first-timers. They talked about being scared but hopeful. They talked about how Jackson, Lila, and Josiah reacted. The comments flooded in with love and support. You deserve this. So happy for you. Praying for a healthy pregnancy. And for a few weeks, that was the story. Baby number 4. Due in late 2023. A wonderful, surprising, blessing of a bonus baby. The narrative was sweet, straightforward. A beautiful capper to their family. Another video. This one had a different energy. The title was all caps, sheer disbelief. We're having twins. The thumbnail was a frozen frame of Zach's jaw on the floor and Tori laughing crying. This was the twist. This was the hook that sent their story into the stratosphere. This was the moment the fairy tale went full Technicolor. In the video, they recounted the now legendary anatomy scan. Tori went in alone because Zach was home with a sick Josiah. The ultrasound tech was doing her thing, quiet, focused. Then she said the words that change everything. Okay, let's measure baby A's head, a beat of silence. Tori's mind short circuits. Baby A. Why is she saying A? There is no alphabet yet. Then the tech, perhaps realizing the monumental news she's about to deliver, says, and there's baby B. Tori described a surreal out-of-body experience. Laughter. Tears. Immediate panic. I literally almost passed out, she said. She FaceTimed Zach, whose face went through every stage of shock known to man. Confusion, disbelief, dawning comprehension, and then pure, unadulterated what have we done terror, quickly followed by joy. The reaction was priceless because it was so real. This wasn't in the plan. After the struggle to have one, the universe had delivered 2. It was overwhelming, hilarious, terrifying, and miraculous all at once. Zach's immediate calculation of costs, that's 2 college tuitions. Tori's frantic thoughts about cars, bedrooms, sleepless nights. This was the ultimate plot twist, and they were the first ones stunned by it. And just like that, the narrative exploded. This was no longer just a pregnancy announcement. This was an event. The twin pregnancy journey became must-see content. Tori's Instagram became a document of a belly growing at an astonishing rate. She shared the unique aches, the hunger, the fatigue of carrying 2 humans. She was brutally honest about the fear, fear of premature birth, of complications, of simply how to manage. But woven through that fear was a golden thread of awe. They revealed the genders. 2 more boys. Twin boys. Jackson and Lila would have 3 little brothers. The Roloff home was about to be a palace of chaos and trucks and unmatched socks. We watched as they prepared. The nursery with 2 cribs. The double stroller assembly that probably required a PhD. The tiny matching outfits. Every step was magnified, doubled in both literal effort and metaphorical significance. For a couple who had faced the profound fear of empty arms, they were now facing the wonderfully terrifying prospect of overflowing ones. The due date was technically in early 2024. But everyone, including Tori and Zach, knew twins often come early. As the leaves fell in November 2023, the anticipation reached a fever pitch. Tori was enormous, uncomfortable, and so ready. Every "how are you feeling?" comment on her posts was loaded. The countdown was on. And then, the news we'd all been waiting for, but delivered with the calm before the storm. A simple post: "Baby boys will be here this week." It was time. So here we are at the precipice. A couple forged in the public eye, tempered by loss, strengthened by love, and now standing at the threshold of their greatest, most chaotic adventure yet. The hospital bag is packed. The grandparents are on standby. Jackson, Lila, and Josiah are about to have their worlds rocked. And somewhere in a delivery room in Portland, Oregon, Tori Roloff is getting ready to meet her sons. But what happened in that room? What was the birth like? How did these 2 little miracles, these living, breathing symbols of a journey through darkness into blinding light, finally make their entrance? That is a story for part 2. The story of the day the Roloff family didn't just grow, it multiplied. The day Tori and Zach became parents to 5. Join me next time, when we go into the delivery room, hear the first cries, and witness the beautiful, overwhelming moment when Baby A and Baby B got their names and forever changed the legacy of the Roloff family. Until then, what's your favorite memory of Zach and Tori's journey so far? The wedding? Jackson's birth? The heartbreaking losses? Or the sheer shock of the twin reveal? Let's keep the conversation going. This is a story about family, in all its messy, glorious, unexpected forms. And the best part? Their story is still being written. Think about that minute. In the span of 60 seconds, Zach and Tori's heart split and grew into 2 new, permanent chambers. In that minute, Jackson became a big brother to 2 more siblings. Lila became the only sister amidst a band of brothers. Josiah was suddenly catapulted from the baby of the family to a middle child. The entire architecture of their world was rebuilt between 8:11 and 8:12 a.m. The fog of surgery, the blur of medication, the sheer surrealism of it all, but through it, the clarity of their cries. Tori, lying there, likely feeling a massive, physical relief coupled with an emotional tidal wave. Zach, his eyes darting between his wife and his 2 new sons, his face probably a masterpiece of tears and the goofy, stunned grin of a man who has just won the most improbable lottery. Then, the moment of introduction. The nurses, having done their initial checks, bring the babies, swaddled into tight little burritos, to their parents. One is placed in the crook of Tori's arm, the other in Zach's. Skin to skin, maybe not on Tori's chest immediately due to surgery, but certainly against Zach's. That first touch. The weight of them. The smell of them. 2. There are 2. This is when the abstract idea of twins evaporates, and the reality of 2 distinct, separate human beings takes hold. This one has a slightly different shaped head. That one has a specific curl to his ear. This one is quieter. That one is already squawking. They are a matched set, but they are individuals from their very first breath. And in this chaotic, beautiful, tear-soaked moment, they cease to be Baby A and Baby B. They were given their names. The names their parents had chosen, guarded, and now whispered to them for the first time. Mateo Knight Roloff and Joseph Josie Martin Roloff. Mateo Knight. Strong, lyrical, with a middle name that evokes protection and bravery. Joseph Martin, a beautiful, classic name, honoring a family tradition, instantly given the affectionate, peppy nickname Josie to distinguish him from his big brother, Josiah. Mateo and Josie. The twinner-do. The dynamic duo. The pieces that completed the Roloff puzzle in a way no one saw coming. The next few hours were a cocoon of newness. Recovery room snuggles. Counting fingers and toes. Twice. The desperate attempt to get both babies to latch for their first feed, a comical and challenging preview of the tandem everything that was to come. The flood of texts and calls, held at bay for a little while as they marinated in their newfound reality. But soon, it was time for the next sacred introduction, meeting the siblings. Imagine Jackson, at 6 years old, walking into that hospital room. He's the veteran. He's been through this before with Lila and Josiah. But too. His curious, intelligent eyes must have gone wide. He likely approached with a mix of awe and gentle caution. This was his legacy. He was the first son, the one who made Zach a dad and Tori a mom, and now he was the leader of a brigade of little brothers. The responsibility, even at his young age, probably felt significant. Then Lila, 4 years old, the princess. She went from having one little brother to having 3. Her feminine energy, her sparkle, was now surrounded by a sea of boyhood. But if we know Lila's spirited personality, she wouldn't have it any other way. She'd be the commander-in-chief, the nurturer, the one to make sure her brothers didn't get too wild. Her first touch of their tiny hand